And welcome to the greatest 30-minute college football show in the history of Canadian television, KCU. And as usual, I'd like to introduce the greatest panelists in the history of Canadian college football, Gord Randall and Justin Dunk. But now, let's go to the real, where Andrew will start us up with the OUA playoffs.
Yeah, Jimmy, we could start with that Panda Game rematch in Ottawa. However, we're going to head to the Hammer, where the reigning Yates Cup champs were in tough against the Marauders. All right, let's kick this reel off with a bang. The reigning Yates Cup champs on the road in the Hammer. Straight to the second cue we go, and Guelph strikes first. James Roberts to a Dre Fraser. That's a 32-yard pass and score, and the mythical Birds are on the board. A Mack field goal cut the deficit to just 4, but with the half expiring, check out this boot from Gabriel Ferraro. Nails the three-banger from 48 yards out. Guelph takes a 10-3 lead into the break. Fast forward to the fourth, Mack down 11-7 now. Asher Hastings orchestrates an 11-play, 75-yard drive that results in this 8-yard major from Dan Peterman. The Urban Sombrero puts the Marauders ahead by 3. Minutes later, Adam Prio-Kanan hits this field goal from 23 yards out, his third of the game, and it's now a 6-point game with just 2.5 minutes to go. So with his season on the line, Roberts goes to work. He drives his squad 68 yards on 7 plays, and then he caps it off with this 28-yard pickup from Keon Schaefer-Baker, putting the Griffins right in the red zone, setting up this for a finish.
Has orchestrated a tremendous drive down to the 11-yard line. And now looks end zone. Into traffic, it's picked off. Keldon Alstead out to the 25 to 30, and out of bounds past the 35. The Marauders on a last-second interception seal the game. They'll advance to take on the Laurier Golden Hawks. What a finish!
Yeah, what he said, Mack is moving on by the skin of their ass. Over to MNP Park now. Carleton playing host to crosstown rival Ottawa. First cue, Gigi's down 3 blank. Jesse Mills go deep for Nate Bahar, but Cody Cranston with the acrobatical denial. Second cue, Mills finds Dexter Brown on the screenplay. DB goes right up the gut, taking it to the Carleton 10. That led to a major. They'd add 10 more points in the queue and hit the recess up by 24. Fourth cue, a little salt in the wound from the Birds. Ottawa's backup pivot, Victor Twinstra's pass gets tipped. Guillaume Caron picks it out of the air, and he gone. Carleton is returning to the Yates Cup semis for a second consecutive season, winning their first home playoff game in 30 years, beating the GGs by 36. All right, let's go west. Huskies at home to those G-Bears, where the Green Dogs wasted very little time getting on the board.
That bounces right in the logo. Dangerous return possibilities here for Braun. And there he goes. Chad Braun, the 30, the 20, the 10, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No flag. Touchdown, Saskatchewan Huskies.
Chad Braun, 62 yards to pay dirt, and it's 7 blank Huskies. It's not often that we praise kickers on this show, but this guy deserves some props. Sean Stenger hit all 6 of his field goal attempts in the game, coming 1 short of the school and conference record for field goals in a game. Stenger set a new school record, hitting 22 on the season. Sasky makes easy work of the G-Bears with a 39-point win. So just where will the Huskies finish in the standings? A Calgary loss to UBC, and the Green Dogs are moving on up. First cue in the prehistoric strikes first. Bryce Harper, no, not the baseball player, caps an 11-play, 73-yard drive with this major. It's 7 not a CGY, but the T-Birds respond. Michael O'Connor in the Calgary zone, rolls out of the pocket and hits Will Watson. We got a tie ball game. Second cue, UBC up 14-10. Check out the arm on O'Connor. Oh my. Travell Pinto makes the grab. That's his second tally of the game, and the home side takes a 13-point lead into the recess. To the fourth cue we go. Dinos clawing their way back in. They're now down just 6. Rookie pivot Adam Sinagra shows off his arm. Deep ball to Austin Hartley, and you know this guy's going to make the catch. That gives Calgary its first lead since the first cue. Minutes later, T-Birds go back out in front.
After the 40, it's now 2nd and 5, under 7 to go. Again, O'Connor back to pass, quick slant. Cummings has got it. Out in the midfield, he's got space. Cross midfield, up towards the 40, up towards the 30 now. Couple Calgary jerseys, and just jumps over him. The 20, still on his feet. 10, touchdown, Ben Cummings!
Just over 2 minutes to go, and the visitors don't back down. Sinagra feels the rush, but gets off the pass to a wide open Michael Klukas. Jimmy Underdahl, what a pass! CGY, just like that, ties this one up. Off to the extra session, and it's Harper that hits a grand slam to seal it. He goes right up the gut, takes it to the house for the win. The T-Birds' playoff hopes now hang in the hands of the Regina Rams, who were in Winnipeg to face the Herd, a Manitoba win, and they're in, but this wasn't even a contest. For the first time, the Rams are going to finish first in the Canada West after they beat the Bisons by 34. Noah Picton, what a game. More on him coming up later on in the show. Over to Quebec, Sherbrooke to be exact, where the Ver et Or were in a must-win situation at home to Laval. And things, well, they looked okay for the green and gold early on. Sherby held a 1-0 lead at halftime with a power play goal, Rouge from Mathieu Hébert, putting the home side ahead. This is football, right? Second half, and the Red Machine takes over. Hugo Richard hits Felix Boubert-Lucier from 27 yards out for the major. Minutes later, he caps off a 5-play, 35-yard drive with a 7-yard scamper and score. Sherby is Dunsky after falling to Laval by 13. Wrap things up in the queue at Bishops with the Stingers in the house. Concordia make quick work of the Gators. Less than 4 minutes in, Justin Julian from backup pivot Colin Segura from 26 yards out, it's 7-0 Stingers. Bishops hit field goals from 33 and 12 yards out off the foot of Vincent Dubé to cut the deficit to just 5 at the half. But Concordia scores 14 points in the third, and they followed up another 14 in the fourth en route to a 33-point W. To the East Coast now, the Huskies in a must-win game versus Acadia. This was a defensive battle, just 13 total points scored in the game. Acadia got the one major from Hunter Gennard, and that's all they needed. They take it by 7, putting an end to SMU's season. And we'll finish off in Antigonish, where X was looking to finish off a strong season with a win over MTA, and that they did. Devon Cook is just so good. Playing in his last regular season game in his collegiate career, the gunslinger tossed for just 3 yards shy of 400 yards with 6 majors, which tied a school record that was set all the way back in 1964. Jim Mullen remembers it fondly. Also of mention, running back Jordan Sashalachuk finished the game with 131 yards on the ground, which put him over 1,000 yards rushing mark, making him just the third rusher in school history to do so. X takes top seed in the conference with a thrashing of the Mountains. All right, playoff board now in the AUS. X, of course, earns the bye after easily taking the top seed in the conference with a stellar 7-1 record. The reigning conference champs will play the winner of this game in the Loney Bowl final. McGill makes a return to the postseason for the first time since 2012, heading to the always tough confines of Sepsum to face the Gariband. And speaking of hard places to play, in the other semi, Concordia heads to Quebec to face Laval at the House of Horrors, known as PEPS. Over to the OUA, where the first semi sees the second seed in the conference, the Laurier Golden Hawks, playing host to McMaster. While the top seed in the conference, the Western Mustangs, welcome those upstart Ravens to lovely London, Ontario. C-Dub, reigning champs, heading to Regina to face the Rams. Somehow UBC escaped missing the playoffs after winning a Vanier Cup last season. Well, the second Hardy Cup semi should be quite the affair. The Huskies and Dinos split the season series with just 4 points in total being the difference in those games.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Yes, time for headlines. And after winning the Tyndall Award in 2013, for Coach of the Year, Kevin Mackey abruptly quit as head coach of the Bishops Gators on Sunday after a string of 1-7 seasons. In the modern age of media management, it was startling to read the release from Bishops Athletics announcing Mackey's departure. Quote, after growing increasingly frustrated with the overall conditions and continued leadership turbulence at Bishops University, I'm choosing to leave on good terms. It was a joy to coach the players who proudly wore the Gator uniform week in and week out and stood side by side with and never gave up and continued to improve despite a sometimes difficult landscape. What do you say to that, Justin?
Turbulence and difficult landscape in a school-sanctioned press release is quite a stunner, guys. Now, what this says to me is that Mackey, who, as you mentioned, was the top coach in the CIS, or voted that way anyway in 2013, felt that the conditions were poor enough at Bishop's that he had to outright quit. There's only so many head coaching jobs in this country, and he left one of them. It seems that he just got so frustrated with what was going on there behind the scenes. Now, we can only speculate, but this speaks to what needs to be corrected across U Sport football, and that everyone needs to get on the same page, and the haves and the have-nots need to be in different conferences.
But what do you say, Gord, to a goodbye like that is essentially sanctioned by the university, or at least one department of the university?
Jim, it's stunning that the Sports Information Department allowed it to go out worded that way. But I do have to give them some kind of credit in that at least they were true to their coach's actual words. He clearly is expressing some frustration there, and maybe the school is trying to make a statement by allowing that to come out by saying, hey, we need to get out of this conference. We know there's been a push at Bishop's in the past to try and move over to the AUS, and if you look at the RSEQ, they are a minnow amongst giants in terms of school size, in terms of clout. They really struggle in that conference and face an uphill battle year in, year out, and it's been a struggle for them recently, even under a former Coach of the Year winner, Jim. And I just think that I wonder if there's some subtext coming straight from the school the way that this was released.
Okay, now it's time off to our sidebar, and many of us thought that Andrew Buckley's 2015 CIS passing record would stand the test of time for at least a little while, at least longer than a year. But the best good news story out of the season isn't the virtual tie in Quebec, nor it's the famed claims of parity in Ontario. It's the Regina Rams and the leadership on that team, led by the new passing king of the U, Noah Picton. Gord, your thoughts on Picton's campaign?
Well, Jim, we saw him come in a little bit last year and had that gunslinger mentality from the outset. And even playing for a team that routinely got completely outclassed on the field, this was a guy that put up decent numbers and showed flashes of absolute brilliance. And this year, he's completely turned the page. He's got the support network in place. He's got an offensive system that plays specifically to his strengths. And most importantly, Jim, he's got a ton of talented receiver that is really helping him out as well. They've solidified the offensive line there. He's got a great supporting cast. And Jim, you've been calling him Mini Mueller for the last little while. I think it's time to start calling Mark Mueller Giant Noah Picton.
Noah Picton has to be my favorite player in the country, fellas. He might be a bit undersized, but he makes up for that with what he's done on the field where it matters, and led this team to first place in the Canada West. The numbers that he's put up in terms of breaking Buckley's record don't surprise me, because we've seen across all levels of Canadian football that it's turned into a turbo passing kind of a game in terms of throwing the football, almost every down. That seems to be what Picton has done. So I think we're going to see this passing record maybe fall continually year to year, or every couple of years.
Off to page 2 now. Montreal Carabins head coach Danny Maciocia basically has called the AUS RSEQ interlock useless, at least so far as the Carabin and the Rouge et Or go. Maciocia told TVA Sport that the leaders of the league must sit down and analyze this situation. Basically, we wanted to be good partners with the AUS, but if the games aren't useful, we have to think about something else. It's not my decision, but I am convinced they will discuss it at the end of the season. So, Justin, what are the options for the RSEQ and the AUS and maybe some other conferences at this stage?
First of all, does not just scream Northern 8 or Northern 10, Jim?
Yes.
What needs to go on here is just an open discussion across Canadian university football, and look at some different models and how we can have better competition at all levels. And competition, that's the word. We want to get rid of the blowouts. They've been talked about so much in the OUA, and we want to have a chance for the AUS to be able to get back onto terms where they can compete with anyone, or at least their top teams can compete with anyone across the country. So an open discussion needs to happen here in terms of what might be possible for an AUS crossover with another conference. It should be the OUA. There should be the bottom 4 teams in the OUA play the 4 AUS teams, and that could solve a lot of problems pretty quickly.
But the big problem with the OUA is 11 teams and that unbalanced schedule. They've got a number of non-combatants they play, and the OUA has made it very clear that they don't want to expand that number of non-combatants, and actually it's pretty hard to blame them.
Yeah, well, and Justin touched on the crux of the matter, which is the communication issue. And this is where a national governing body like U Sport needs to step in and make sure that the conferences are in a cooperative mood with each other. They allow individual conferences to have too much of a say in their own affairs and do not step in and guide the way a national governing body should in terms of making sure that crossover happens. That does need to be addressed and needs to be overseen by the national governing body. Now, in the interim, I would be a fan, and I think this is an easy fix. I would be a fan in the interim of continuing the RSEQ interlock, but keeping Laval and Montreal out of it for the next couple of years, having those two teams play an extra regular season against each other. If Danny Maciocia wants more competition, then we'll throw the best competition we have at you. And I'm sure in a couple of years he'll be complaining about how he has to play Laval 3 times every year.
Weekend Warriors, and we talked a lot about him just a few minutes ago, but it needs to be mentioned that Noah Picton is my weekend warrior. He had a job, he had a goal, he just went out and got it done with his teammates on a road versus a rival. Game, set, match, and for the Rams, for the very first time, they are in first place since they were in the PFC.
And my first 5 weekend warriors, Jim, yes, 5. The offensive line at Carleton. Now, I know they put 7 guys on the field for offensive linemen on a lot of first downs, but I want to shout out to the main 5, Zach Annan, Casey Backer, Eric Fowler, Nolan McGreer, and Kwabene Asari. These guys have been monsters this year and have really hit their stride down the stretch, producing the leading rusher in the country in Jade Rowe, one of just 2 1,000-yard rushers in the country, and a big day from Christian Battistelli this past weekend. Both guys going well over 100 yards, combining for 3 rushing touchdowns as they pounded the Ottawa Gee-Gees in the first round. And if you look at the OUA playoffs from here on out, you've got the 4 best offensive lines in the province. That's not a coincidence, as the teams that can run the ball and take the pressure off of their quarterback's shoulders, which Derek Wendell found out the hard way this past weekend, are the teams that are prepared to be most successful in November and beyond.
Let's go to Hamilton, and Keldon Alstead, the 5th-year senior defensive back for McMaster, came up absolutely clutch at the final moments of the game with Mac down 17-11, Guelph driving inside. 8 seconds left in the game. Guelph on the 12-yard line. James Roberts drops back, throws a pass. Alstead picks it off to seal the win for the Marauders and send them to the semis. And oh, by the way, he had the big tackle on the play before to knock Kean Schaefer-Baker out of bounds when it looked like he might turn the corner to the end zone. So the senior lives to see another week.
I'm going with the gunslinger at quarterback. Tavon Cook is my weekend warrior for his 6 TD performance in the final week. In a conference that has been seriously hurting at the pivot position over the last cycle, Cook has quietly passed the 6,000-yard mark, and if X makes it past the Loney Bowl, it could very well give a Can West team fits under the right conditions in the Mitchell Bowl.
We're talking Bryce Harper, and no, he's not playing in the MLB postseason. He's making big plays for the Calgary Dinos in the running game. 23 carries, 145 yards, including a 19-yard game-clinching touchdown run in overtime for the Dinos as they secure a home playoff date for a 9th straight season to extend their school record. Mr. Harper getting it done for the Dinos.
Justin, that's a clown pick, bro. He wasn't even the best running back on the field in Vancouver because the guy who was Ben Cummings. This guy was electric despite the fact his team didn't end up winning, and he has taken a stranglehold on that UBC backfield that was a 3-headed monster for the first half of the season, and frankly, none of those 3 monsters were that scary. But he's the guy now, as Corey Nagata and Liam Mahara didn't even take a single snap in this past game. He had 19 carries for 179 yards, which is an excellent 9.4 carry. He also added 2 receptions for 79, including a huge 74-yard touchdown pass reception in the fourth quarter to put UBC ahead in that game. Ben Cummings, if UBC is going to pull up an upset this upcoming weekend, Ben Cummings has to be the guy that carries that offense, Jim.
Now I know who's in the clown suit at the edge of the woods. Around the bend, it's Coach Olson with some screen learning.
Krown Countdown U is supported by the Guelph Griffins. Agile, mobile, hostile.
The West Shore Rebels are BCFC champs and are moving on to the Canadian Bowl, defeating the Okanagan Sun 32-21 in the Cullen Cup. The Rebels will host the Canadian Bowl in 2 weeks, but who will they be playing? The Saskatoon Hilltops are heading to the Canadian Bowl for the third year in a row. This past Sunday, they defeated the Calgary Colts 43-31 in the PFC Championship. So the big enchilada is set 2 weeks from now, November 12th. Southern Vancouver Island as the West Shore Rebels host the Saskatoon Hilltops. CEGEP quarterfinals, Andre Grasset moves on with a 48-30 dispatching of Saint Jean-sur-Richelieu. Champlain College easily handled Limoilou 60-27. And the Cheetahs of Vanier College get by Vieux-Montréal 32-17. So in the first semi, Champlain-Lennoxville takes on Andre Grasset, and in the second, the first place finishers Notre-Dame-de-Foix hosts Vanier. Yes, they play college football at more than just the AUS schools down east. It's the Dalhousie Tigers and the Holland College Hurricanes in the championship known as the Moosehead Cup this Saturday. Look, everybody, Gord's getting his notes ready for X's and Olsen.
This week, we're going to take a look at the Laurier Golden Hawks' dominant defense. Probably one of the most dominant defenses in the country. They lead the country in sacks, and they're in the top 3 in both fumble recoveries and interceptions. Let's take a look here at the first clip. This is where it all starts for the Golden Hawks. You've got yourself 2 of the most dominant pass rushers in the country. You've got Boateng inside here, and you got Robbie Smith on the end. Simple stunt. You got penetrator inside from the end position, and you got contain coming outside from your 3-tech. Right here, Robbie Smith's the guy that's going to penetrate, create pressure, and get a huge sack here versus the Queens Golden Gales. Let's roll it. Anytime you can create pressure with 4 down linemen, penetration here from Robbie Smith, bull rush, you've got big problems as an offense, and that's what's happened all year. 36 sacks on the season. Very, very impressive stuff. Let's take a look here at now the turnover game. Take a look. You got 4-man pressure. Now you got a little play-action game here going, so you're seeing run. But these guys are anchoring versus the run, and you get a bull rush from your weak side end, hand in the face, and you'll see what it does to the throwing lane. Patented run fake here, and you pause it right here. Right there, that's the key. You've got pressure off of a bull rush coming out of a play-action fake. That's tough to do from a defensive front, but right here, you see that hand in the face of the quarterback. Simple sort of high look from the DB, and it's an overthrown ball created by that pressure right into the hands of the corner. Big play. It's been happening all year for the Golden Hawks. Take a look at how this play finishes. Ball sails right into the hands of the corner, and now the race is on. Possible touchdown every single time these guys get the football. It's led to a 7-1 record this year, probably the surprise of the OUA, and has earned them a bye in the first week of the playoffs. Go Hawks.
Now it's time for what we want to know. We're Triple W2K. So, Triple W2K, what's the biggest potential trap game of the semifinals?
Well, Jim, I don't know if I would call it necessarily a trap game, but that Laurier-McMaster game out in the OUA is basically going to be a coin flip. If you want to talk about a true trap game, however, it's the aforementioned Regina Rams and Noah Picton hosting the UBC Thunderbirds. Now, these 2 teams have played tight twice already this year, so Regina's eyes may have been open to just how good UBC can be. But with UBC having played them tight, clearly this is a matchup that looks pretty good for the Thunderbirds on paper, and this is a team that's starting to show some signs of getting rolling just a little bit. Now, I know that sounds strange on a team that's lost its last 3 games, but they've been tight games, the last 2 at least, and UBC is starting to show a more balanced attack on offense, a little bit more variety and aggression on defense, and they certainly have a very good chance to pull off this upset. And there's been a blueprint put together for beating the Regina Rams by the Alberta Golden Bears of all teams. So if those guys can beat the Regina Rams, I'm sorry, I know that their body of work's impressive, but anybody can beat the Regina Rams.
The OUA has a couple of tasty matchups, fellas. First, I'll start with Laurier McMaster because it'll be on CH. Mark Lee, myself, and Sherry Ford on the call. But for my trap game, I'm going down to Western in London. Yes, they're the #1 seed in the OUA. Yes, they're hosting the Carleton Ravens. But for a couple of reasons, I think Steve Samara's group can go in there and get a win. First, these playoff games at Western have been sparsely attended in recent years, so I'm not sure how much of an actual home field advantage there will be on game day. That said, Carleton does have to make the long trip down there. And in the regular season, Carleton beat Western, and don't underestimate what that means for these Ravens in terms of psyche going up against Western. That was the one team that they sort of wanted to get over the hump against, that is the X on every schedule that you want to beat, and Carleton has done it once, and they went up 24-0 in that football game. So let's roll with the Ravens to shock the Western Mustangs and pull the upset.
Regina is apparently the football capital of Canada, so Triple W 2K with the Riders out and Old Mosaic still open for the Can West playoffs. Can the Rams finally get the support and the audience they have earned in that community, and quite frankly, they have deserved, Justin?
I agree with you 100% here, Jim. If you're going to talk about just this season and entertainment value, the Regina Rams are way above what the Riders have provided this year. That said, the Riders have been better of late, but bang for your buck, go out and check out this Regina Rams team that is taking on UBC and a talented quarterback in his own right, and Michael O'Connor. There's going to be some points put on the board, and you're going to walk away saying, I'm glad I spent the money to go out and check out that game.
And I'm going to jump on the back of that too. If the tearful goodbye to Taylor Field this past weekend was more than crocodile tears for you and you are a Regina native, then you need to be out at this game. I know I wouldn't miss it if I had a chance to go see another football game at Taylor Field this weekend, and then potentially another football game at Taylor Field next weekend, and then potentially another football game at Taylor Field the weekend after that. It's a very exciting time in Regina, and take advantage of this opportunity. And I'm challenging you, people of Regina and Saskatchewan as a whole, even if you're coming down from Saskatoon so you can boo the Regina Rams, I don't care, but you should be going to check out Taylor Field this weekend and seeing this game in person, if for no other reason than to say goodbye to the grand old lady in its actual last game, instead of that ugliness that we saw on Saturday between the Lions and the Riders.
You can practically buy a playoff season ticket for the Regina Rams if things work out for them. Well, that'll do it for another edition of Krown Countdown U, but for now, especially you people in Regina, let's get out to the game.